Sharing something as personal as your experience with insomnia takes a lot of courage, so thank you for trusting us with your story, An Insomniac's Guide to the Secrets of the Universe.
It's a powerful story.
It really is, and we're going to unpack how it reflects that universal struggle of sleepless nights.
Right.
Because I think we've all been there,
Absolutely.
tossing and turning, the clock's ticking way too loudly.
Yes.
And you're just like, when will this end?
Exactly. That feeling of time slipping away when you can't fall asleep.
It's the worst, and the story just captures that so well.
It really does.
Right from the beginning, we're transported to this sweltering summer night in New Orleans, and our protagonist is she is trying every trick in the book to fall asleep. The classic counting sheep. Which, by the way, I love how she's like, why sheep? Why not antelopes? Or pink elephants?
All right.
Like, who came up with that?
Exactly.
But yeah, counting sheep, hiding under the sheets.
Been there.
But insomnia has her, well, it's got her in its grip.
It's like it takes over, doesn't it? How even when you try to distract yourself,
Yes.
your mind just won't cooperate.
And it's interesting how she tries to control it. You know, like she starts cleaning, channel surfing.
Oh, yeah. The late night snacks.
Yes. All those things we do to feel, I don't know, a little bit in control when sleep just evades us.
Absolutely. It's like the quiet of the night gives your anxieties permission to run wild.
It really does. And I was drawn to the detail about her environment, you know? This 100-year-old shotgun house in New Orleans.
Oh, interesting.
I don't know. It just made me think about how our surroundings can almost amplify those feelings of restlessness when we can't sleep.
Oh, absolutely.
What do you think it is about a place like New Orleans with its history, its energy,
Right.
that might heighten that experience of insomnia?
Well, you see, I think New Orleans in this story, it's almost like another character.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's got this energy.
It's like the city that never sleeps.
Exactly. And she can't sleep.
Right.
So you have that constant hum of activity, and it's like this
Yeah.
stark contrast to what's going on with her internally.
Yeah, it's like this constant reminder that she should be able to just turn off
Right.
like the city does.
Exactly.
And speaking of not being able to turn off, I keep thinking about those feral cats.
Oh, yes.
They just keep popping up all over the place, and
Oh.
it's like they mirror her.
They can't turn off their instincts either.
I think that's such a good point because you see them lurking around and they're so watchful.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of how insomnia, it can make you feel really on edge too.
Totally. Like you're hyper aware of everything.
Exactly. And those cats, they're like that all the time with their scavenging and, you know, those cat fights, those fight clubs she mentioned.
Oh, yeah.
It all adds to the sense of unease, of anxiety, which I think really reflects what the protagonist is going through.
Yeah. And it's like she sees a little bit of herself in them.
Right.
Like this wild, untamed part of her that she can't quite control.
Yes, and it just won't let her rest.
Exactly. And speaking of finding a little bit of peace,
Okay.
or at least trying to, I was intrigued by her late night rituals.
Yeah, like what's she doing to cope? Yes, like those infomercials she gets sucked into.
Right, every time.
Or that old black and white movie she always watches.
Oh, yeah, the classics.
And even that cooking show with the Neiman Marcus cookie
Oh,
recipe.
yes, the legendary cookie recipe.
It's like those familiar things, those little comforts, they offer her a little bit of solace.
Yeah, I get that.
So why do you think that is? Why do we find comfort in those things when we can't sleep? It's like when you can't control when you're going to fall asleep, those little things give you something you can control.
Right. They become these anchors.
Yes, exactly. Like familiar things you can count on in this sea of insomnia.
I think that's a really good way to put it.
And it makes those brief encounters she has even more interesting.
The people she runs into.
Yeah, like the Chinese food delivery guy or that clerk at the convenience store. Even those other people at the Waffle House in the middle of the night.
It really highlights how isolating insomnia can be, doesn't it?
It does. It's like she's surrounded by people, but still so alone in it.
Yeah, like everyone else is just passing through her night.
And you wonder, you know, are those little interactions her way of trying to connect?
Interesting question.
Or is it more about routine at that point, like just something to mark the time passing?
I think it could be a bit of both, right?
Yeah.
On one hand, it's just practical stuff like ordering food or whatever.
All right.
But on the other hand, you've got these little glimpses into how other people deal with the night.
Yes.
Like that cook who's exhausted from the night shift.
Right. Or Jerry with his sleepy time tea.
Exactly. Even that old man with his wool socks.
It's like they all have their own little rituals for dealing with insomnia.
They're all part of this club nobody wants to be in.
So true. And speaking of connections that part with her memories of Ken, it's like the whole tone of the story shifts.
It's more melancholic.
Yes, like you can really feel that loss.
And how insomnia just amplifies those feelings.
It really does. Especially that detail about how she used to fall asleep to his stories.
Yeah, it's like those sleepless hours bring back everything she's missing.
The connection, the feeling of being safe and loved.
Exactly. And maybe even a little bit of escape, like she found in his stories.
And speaking of Ken, I keep thinking about that detail about her dog Jarvis.
Oh, right.
What do you think the story behind that name is?
Well, we don't know for sure, but it says it was something that made them both laugh.
Yeah, and it just makes you want to know more.
It really does. It reminds us that even in the midst of grief and insomnia, there can still be joy and humor.
Absolutely. And those little moments that can be so powerful.
They can be everything.
And on that note, our time is up for this deep dive, but the story, well, it stays with you.
It does. It's so open-ended.
Like, even though the sun's coming up and the city's waking up, she's still caught in it.
Still awake.
Yes, and it makes you wonder what happens next.
Exactly. What does that next day look like for her?
How does she navigate a world that's moving at a different pace?
And maybe even more importantly, what can we as readers take away from her experience?
So if you're listening, we'd love to hear your thoughts. What resonates with you about the protagonist's story?
And how does an Insomniac's Guide to the Secrets of the Universe connect to your own relationship with sleep and the world around you?